All right. Well, hello, everybody, to episode 74 of Open House, New Camp's Open House. If you're new here, if you've never been to any of these open houses before, they're honestly really awesome because they're super laid back. They're super chill. You can just sit down while you're on break and just kind of hear me and Zandra just chatting and talking about just tech and just anything as a whole. So, while we're in the middle of this live stream for the next hour or so, feel free to prompt us with questions, ask us anything. We'd be more than happy to talk a little bit more about some particular questions you might have about web development, backend, maybe a little cybersecurity, just really just trying to get into the tech industry. What does that look like? Today, I thought I'd try something a little bit different for us. Maybe it's not too different. It's all kind of the same thing. I mean, we're kind of just riffing off of each other in these types of open houses anyway. But I wanted to really talk about the entire cycle of before getting into tech, then the pursuit of learning it, what that entails, and then the after phase of that too, like what to expect while you're going for a job, the process of that. And I thought the best way to be able to share some insights with that is just really talking about how me and Zandra both got into tech ourselves. Really, Zandra has a lot of great experience on. Zandra has a lot of great experience on coding and just the whole tech space in general because she's one of the career advisors here too. So she helps people at the finish line all the time. I'm one of the advisors here, so I help people at the start line. So I get to hear people's pre-stories. Zandra gets to help them with the after stories. But anyway, Zandra, thank you for joining me today. Long intro, but I got to hype you up some way, right? So thanks for joining.
Yo, thanks, fam. For real, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
And
and already we have some things flooding into the chat right now. I mean, we got Irene in the house. Hello and happy Friday. Happy Friday to everybody else here. Asger, hello to you too. I think I've actually talked to you before in the past, so it's awesome to see you in the live stream.
well,
Let's see. Let's see what Asger is asking right here. What I really want to learn is connecting to a payment platform like Stripe or Connecta. When will we learn more about that in the course? Thanks. That's a great question. Zandra, do you think you can tackle that one for me?
yeah, for sure. So in either our front end, our full stack course, or our back end course, as Krista has rightly mentioned here in the chat, you'll get into APIs, and that's application programming interface. You probably already use APIs without knowing about it. It's basically allows two systems to talk to each other in a standardized format.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, like when you get into that full stack phase, that's when things really start to ramp up. When
Mhm.
you start tackling on really JavaScript. JavaScript's one of those interesting coding languages that really bridges the gap between front end and back end. You don't really get many coding languages like that. Uh, Teddy over here is saying, "Please speak loud. We can't hear you." We're
No, okay,
gonna
I'll
here.
try. Is that
I'll
better?
I'll bump up the mics for us. Teddy, how's my mic sound? Does it sound good? Cool. Um, well, I mean, kind of going back to those predetermined topics that I really wanted to tackle on with us was really in my mind. I just kind of had it on my heart where I really wanted to talk more about maybe specifically to someone who could be watching this live or maybe sometime in the future on a playback.
Hmm.
Because I don't know about you, Zandra, but I don't really come from a traditional background. And I talk to a
Yeah.
lot of people who are trying to get into the tech industry who are concerned. Maybe I don't have a degree. I don't have many great networking opportunities. And I just thought I'd take some time to really share a little bit more about my story and kind of, make maybe you can make some correlations, whomever's watching this, as to how that might apply for you. But to give some context, I don't come from a traditional education background. I dropped out in eighth grade to become a full time caretaker. Once I did drop out, I really felt like I got a head start on a lot of people in the sense of I skipped past high school. I got my GED, but those high school years, I didn't really get that time. And honestly, kind of okay with it. The more I hear about high school, the more I'm like, I don't think I would have really liked it. I'm not a huge academic person.
Mm.
A person who I was right in the middle of the road with school. I was not the popular person. I was not the unpopular person. I just kind of stayed in my lane and just kind of went on through life. And so I just started working full time, learned a lot about life in those high school years, started working a lot of different positions and jobs at 15, 16 years old. And what I come to find out was working retail and working food and all these other jobs. I've probably worked 20 plus jobs in my lifetime, and I'm only 26. That's a lot. And so through that time, I've gotten to see a lot of different shades of colors of people and of their backgrounds of like who they are as people. And in those types of jobs, it just makes you go, like I know there's more out there for myself, right? And so
Mm.
that being said, I always loved gaming. That's what got me into tech personally. And
Okay.
so I just was like, hey, let's make some games, and tried my hand at that. Realized that wasn't for me. Went the self-taught route for a while, but then eventually I wanted to circle back to web development. And in my early high school years, I started getting into HTML and CSS, and bought some Udemy courses, some things on YouTube. Great resources there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found out was I was taking forever to learn these languages like HTML, like CSS. I mean,
Mm.
it probably took me 4 or 5 months to learn those two, which is a ridiculous amount of time, by the way. You shouldn't be spending so much time on HTML and CSS. 4, 5, 6 months on that, especially because I might be a little biased on this, but our web development fundamentals tackles that and more with only 4 weeks. So, I just lacked structure. I lacked accountability of getting back to it. And that's something I ran into a lot. Is that maybe something you shared in your background? What kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious, what kind of background do you come from but prior to tech, Zandra?
Yeah, for real. A lot of the things you said resonated with me. And hopefully y'all can hear me now. I'm holding my snowball mic a little closer. Let me know. I started out, I had to do a family household move
Okay.
for my husband's job. And so I had to quit my job. I was in communications in New York, and I had to move. I moved to Hawaii, which sounds awesome,
It
but
does sound pretty cool, I'm not gonna
but
lie.
if you don't have a job like lined up already before you get there, it's not super fun times.
I
So
bet.
I thought, okay, I'm multilingual and I could probably find something there based on the population and my skills. So I wasn't super stressed about it, and it was not a fun time. So I was looking for jobs. I actually ended up I was driving a mail truck at one point with the postal service. I was working part time for the school system in Hawaii, which was kind of fun but very tiring. And I was cleaning houses with a friend who was cleaning like these big, rich vacation homes. Super illuminating, and I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun actually, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. And I kept looking at jobs boards. I was on LinkedIn, I was on Indeed, I was clicking apply to all these other jobs, and I was like, it's the Hawaii job market. I need to get back into the New York job market somehow and work remotely. So I started looking at all the remote jobs. The remote jobs was all Python, JavaScript, React, Angular. Angular was very big. And I kept on saying, I got to learn some of this stuff because that's where the salaries are and that's where the remote
Yeah.
jobs are.
So how long ago was that?
That was about 7, 8 years ago.
7 and 8 years ago. And when
Mhm.
you were going, so when you went into Hawaii and you were working all of these different types of jobs, how
Mhm.
long was that time span before you came to that realization of I need to be
Mm.
more on this other mindset with a remote
Yeah.
work?
It took me about a year and a half to start thinking like, "Wow, this is not working what I'm doing."
Yeah.
And then I started going on Udemy and YouTube, and, when you go on YouTube, you see those commercials for Udemy. At the time, I kept seeing Python's where it's at. This dude was like commercial. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I better learn Python." I don't know why this guy's telling me. And, my father had been a coder as well. So I thought, maybe it's time I find out about it. And it took me forever because you come home at night and you're dragging, you're so tired, and you have to get on the computer instead of just relaxing.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what you should be studying. So you kind of go around here and there and clicking on different things and looking at different courses. You can really never finish a course because nobody's forcing you to finish it. There's no homework, there's no finals or midterms, and there's no one to help you when you get stuck.
Right. Yeah, it's a vast ocean at the beginning phases of really that self-taught route. And a lot of people like the idea of going self-taught for, well, really two main reasons. It's a, like the affordability aspect because it's free, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it's free. Like
Mhm.
even the people who go the self-taught route still try and buy a course, and then really you're indirectly doing the same thing as going through more of a structured learning environment. But then
Yep.
it's the flexibility aspect. People like to say to themselves, "Oh, I can do this anytime throughout the week that I'm free after I get off of a work shift or anything like that." And I mean, I'm sure you and I can both attest to this.
Mhm.
You convince yourself that you can do that, and then you have a really long day at work. You say, "I'm going to code on this Friday evening," right?
Mhm.
Then you go to work and you have the worst day ever, and you get home and you kick up your feet, throw on some Netflix, eat some food, and you're out like a light, right?
Mhm.
That was me at least once or twice a week when I told myself I was going to code. I never did it. And the next thing I know, I'm spending 4 or 5, 6 months learning HTML and CSS
Mhm.
and like relearning these things. Ring rust is completely real when it comes to the beginning phases of that self-taught route. Krista actually mentioned something in here.
Mm.
She said you can learn a lot from the world. School teaches you theory of things for the most part, and I've always cheered for the school of life. I want to come back to that in a later portion of this time together in this next hour, because
Mm.
there is actually something that really kind of spoke to me, what you just said, Krista, about um, you know being taught through life and how that can still pertain to more professional stance, especially within tech and getting into tech. So I want to come back to that here in a second. But it looks like you just also mentioned self-taught seems logical until you're in the weeds of unfinished courses. I still have quite a few of those, and I have become a developer for a little bit too. And um, I find myself just not finishing them out. And that being said, I think everybody should start with getting your feet wet with something more visually pleasing. Like what I mean by that is if you're starting completely from scratch, for instance, and you're thinking about getting into coding, but you don't know where to begin, you don't know what Visual Studio Code is, you don't know how to type anything and make it show up on screen for a website.
Mhm.
Um, Web development fundamentals is a great place to start, being HTML, CSS, and then Bootstrap is the primary framework for that. And so the reason I always recommend that path first is because when you're learning a new skill, you need instant rewarding feedback on that progression. Everybody deserves that, especially when you're learning something new. The best way to get that is through front end, in my opinion. And so, Krista, that's funny. I'm sorry. I saw that and that made me chuckle. New Camp's courses are the only courses I ever finish. In truth, that's kind of fun. But yeah, and then but having fun with it too, being able to type something in and then whoa, I just made this magical device pop up whatever I controlled. And so it's a huge rush to be able to start digging down the rabbit hole of asking why does this work the way that it works. Looks like Teddy's coming in with some heat, with some questions of I am interested in pursuing full stack development as a computer science student in California.
Hmm.
Let me actually bring this on screen.
And Natalie, don't feel shy, and also Sai Basef, don't feel shy to ask your questions.
The job market is competitive, and I'm wondering which certification would be the most beneficial to obtain in a boot camp. Since my college curriculum is mainly focused on Java, what do you suggest? Well, as much as I like certificates and certifications and things, if you're going into full stack, and this is maybe me personally, I think projects show for a lot more. Certificates are great for something like LinkedIn or your resume, but a lot of these employers, and Zandra can speak to this better than me, are really wanting to see not that you can just say you know how to code, but they want to see that you know how to code as well. They want to dive into something like that. Zandra, what are your thoughts on Teddy's question here about the job market's competitive, but I'm wondering what's the best route for me to go?
Yeah, certifications. If you are looking at our cybersecurity boot camp, then yes, you'll want to prepare for the most common certs using our curriculum and our live workshops that'll help you prepare. In the cybersec world, yeah, they do want to see certain certifications. There are jobs that you can get without certifications, even in
Well, I think
cybersecurity.
Teddy's trying to pursue the
But
full
for code,
stack
yeah,
web development. So, uh, you know,
yeah, for future um, watchers of this video, I just thought I should
oh, okay, I got you.
preamble that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no, you're good.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that because it's
but
true. Yeah.
for coding, what Dean said is 100% correct. Your certificates at the entry level are not going to be as persuasive as your portfolio of projects. And I always use that example, and maybe it's getting a little tired now of us going into a barbershop or a beauty salon and flipping through that book of um, styles that the stylist has completed in the past. Yes, they have their certificate from beauty school or whatever on the wall, but or their state license for hair cutting. But that is not what makes you sit in the chair and let them have the scissors on you. So that's
Mm.
the same thing with your code that you've written your projects. That's what's going to put you ahead of the pack. The people who don't have projects when they apply for the same job as you are going to be behind you because you're going to have completed projects that you could talk about while you were in the boot camp.
Yeah, and that is a great analogy. I love that. I don't think I've heard you share that before about
Oh, good.
yeah, I don't I you said you've used it a lot. It's my first time hearing it, and I'm going to definitely steal that because it's a great analogy to show for. And that kind of brings me back to what Krista mentioned way up here
Hmm.
of you can learn a lot from life. And I kind of want to get back into maybe some of Xandra and I's personal stories of how we got into this too. So, um, years later, after I'm still working these retail type jobs or food or any other type of thing, now I'm a fresh adult around 18, 19 years old, and I'm definitely really pursuing coding. I actually ended up joining a different boot camp, and my experience there was not the best. And I'm not going to get too into the weeds about that, but
Mm-hmm.
it did open my perspective on what you can do through this. And so, at the same time of going through this boot camp, I was working at a grocery store, about 19, 20 years old, and I don't have any type of tech background aside from going through this boot camp, right? What I ended up doing, and the reason I pull this up is you can learn a lot from life, is you can come from any type of background and still segue some type of experience into tech. Prompt yourself a question of what doesn't use technology nowadays, and you'll find yourself stumped because just about every single realm of any industry, any type of job uses tech in some type of way. And so, some advice I'd love to give to all of you in case you're on a pursuit to building your own type of projects, maybe if you even sign up through New Camp, you'll be building your own personal project at the end. Something that I personally did was build an inventory management system of a grocery store where you can update things and you can keep track of different departments within the grocery store. So that way, if I was ever asked a question, what is your background with this type of grocery store? Tell me a little bit about this in an interview. It was kind of a trap question a little bit because that didn't have anything to do with the position I was applying for. I mean, maybe they wanted to hear it, but I felt like it was kind of just being generous. And so I got really frustrated with that type of question. And so I built something as it pertained to that experience. So if they ever asked me, hey, Dean, what was your experience with this grocery store? Publix is what I worked at. If anybody knows that in the South. And so I say, oh, it brought a lot of great perspective for me. This is the project that I built through an inventory management system of updating things in real time for different departments. And so if they ever ask me a question about my prior work experience, I had a project to directly associate with the solution of that job that I was going for. What are your thoughts on that type of strategy, Zandra? Do you think more
Mhm.
people should implement something like that? Just some initial thoughts from you.
Yeah, 100%. And it goes even well. Yes, I have had the pleasure of going to a Publix in Atlanta, and it is bomb. So I think if you had the experience of working like in childcare, make one of your boot camp projects related to daycare management, like an app where you have to digitally you have to upload your driver's license if you're the parent or guardian who's authorized to pick up the child after school, and then you have a SQL database or a Mongo database that tracks all of that. Make it super simple, and then your resume is going to look really nice because you have the childcare work experience that's a non-coding experience, and then you have built an app, for a daycare management app with very simple features. It just puts those keywords on your resume that kind of
Right.
line up instead of it's completely unrelated. Like worked in a daycare and then I, went to a coding boot camp. The two completely separate things. You've now joined them together.
And then putting those projects on your resume itself. That's something I learned from my past experiences. Is don't be afraid to put some of your projects on your resume. Most
Hmm.
resumes are scanned by an AI. There's optimization that goes into it that's looking for keywords. We're kind of getting flooded a couple questions in here, and I want to take some time to go over Jane's question. Jane, I think I've actually seen you in here before, or maybe we've talked before. And, so thank you for joining us today and asking this question. I'm interested in the full stack boot camp, but don't have but don't have coding experience. Do you think the web design class is enough to get me ready? So the web development fundamentals class is actually specifically tailor made to get you prepped for full stack. In fact, you can't even register for the full stack boot camp without hitting a checkbox mark of saying I know the basics of HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. So it serves somewhat as a prerequisite leading into the full stack boot camp, and so that is way more than enough to get you prepped for that. That is a very beginner level class that then tees you up for more of the intermediate to advanced comings for full stack. So I would be in the mindset of let me start with this, let me check it out, let me see how New Camp teaches for 4 weeks. HTML and CSS and Bootstrap are transferable anywhere you go, so it gives you a good time frame to see what works out best for you. That directly leads into the next cohort and keep the momentum going. I mean, we talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the live stream, is when you're taking too much time in between of learning these things, you're going to start forgetting a lot of very basic stuff. And it's not even like the syntax. Everybody forgets the syntax every once in a while. It's more so you're going to conceptually forget a lot. And so keeping that momentum rolling. So check out the web development fundamentals, try that out, and then you'll really know if you want to proceed with full stack. Odds are you
Hmm.
probably will, though. Let's see.
And if I could just inject
Yeah,
something there too,
totally.
when you were telling your story earlier about how long it took you to get HTML and CSS,
Yeah.
part of me was thinking, Yeah, everybody's different. Everybody has a different path. And yeah, maybe it takes somebody a long time to learn it. So that's not wrong or a bad. However, when it burns you out because you're taking too long, or you keep losing momentum because you're stopping, starting, and you're forgetting syntax, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, and but there is that line that you were mentioning, right? Like
Hmm.
where you're spending too much time on something that's too basic.
Hmm.
Almost like an analysis paralysis, or I
Yes.
need to become super proficient at this before I move on to the next thing. Not necessarily. You should always take what you're learning and compound that to the next phase. And
Hmm.
that's what I think that was really compelling about when I was being brought on board with New Camp. Of they do so well at trimming the fat off of things and building
Hmm.
in-house curriculum of, hey, we're going to teach you specifically about this, and realistically you shouldn't be spending as much time in other things. You should just de- delegate your time to this, get good at this, we're going to move on to the next thing while still learning from the previous week and using that. So
Hmm.
um, Asger has asked, what are employers saying about you having other jobs besides coding? Well, that kind of goes back into the coding project that I gave, that it pertained to that job, right? So you would take from my perspective, you would take your personal project that's tailored to any type of previous work experience, and you would take that question and deflect it onto why you're there, right? Um, so I didn't really get many questions about my previous work experience because I tried to always have my projects the forefront of the conversation. Um, I mean, there you can share some insights of career development in the sense of leadership skills that you can learn, people that you've met, how you've kind of grown through a job as well, some trials and errors, and personal development. But shouldn't be running into that question too much. Not as much as people who are outside of the tech industry. They think that they're going to run into that problem a lot. It's not as much as you probably think, especially if you're prepping for those interviews the right way. Um, let's see. Let's see. Krista, let's read through this. Everyone should work a CS job in their life. It teaches you so much about people and patience, empathy, and so many things. That might not sound techy, but in a tech team takes soft skills too. Couldn't agree more. Um, I think a lot of people like to look at things as just black and white, within tech, but there's nuance that gets from point A to point B. If you're working with a team of other developers and other people have roles, we're all human still, at least at the moment of recording this, and that takes a lot of patience of how to lead a team through that and how to collaborate as well. You
Hmm.
can't be a one man army on everything all the time.
Yep.
Um, any thoughts on that, Zandra?
No, no, I totally agree. You said it well. Nothing that I could add.
Cool. I would actually love to your perspective on this next question here.
Hmm.
Having the experience that you do.
The tech market has been hit pretty hard by this past couple of years. It's still in a rough spot. Do you guys have any thoughts on that and what it means for current students? Yeah, we definitely do. And our whole thing that we've usually say is it's cyclical is a good way to look at it. Um, Pretty much any industry, not just tech, is going to have those ups and down periods. If you're a truck driver, if you're a teacher, there's budget cuts. If you're, in whatever industry, if you were in food service and food delivery in 2020, you experienced quite a boom. So, and then there was a lot of laying off after that in food service. So, um, I said all that to say it's not just tech getting hit hard, um, but for our current students, that means that they have this kind of a lull to prepare for when the up wave hits again, the uptick in hiring, because there's always those up and down cycles, and you want to use this time to be ready to jump on the up wave when it comes. So, you can look at your area, you can look at who's hiring, look on LinkedIn to get an idea of what roles are available, who's hiring, what kind of companies are near you. Those are pretty good things. And if you have any other thoughts on that, Dean, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm instantly thinking. So I've been contemplating buying a house recently. Okay. And what's been going through my head is I'll jump on Zillow or Realtor every single day, every other day. I'll look at houses in certain areas that I'd ideally like to move into. And I get really familiar of seeing a house or any type of property and going, that's way too much, or whoa, that's a pretty good deal. I think you can translate a lot of that same mindset to jumping on LinkedIn or Indeed every single day and looking at some jobs, because you're going to see certain positions that will open up and go, whoa, they're asking for a ton, or whoa, that's not really. Let's see. Hold on one second.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
There's fluctuations, and you can't view that as the norm. That's gonna be the standard today, tomorrow, in the future, and define the industry for the future by this present moment.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
get
mean,
what you're
and
saying.
and plus, it just kind of gives you more of a personal roadmap of where you should be, of like where's that sweet spot. Or if you're still at the beginning phases of trying to get into the tech industry, when you see those good opportunities come up, maybe you can't act on them right away. That's totally fine. I mean, opportunities are going to come and go. That's part of the
Hmm.
game. And but it gives you a sense of comfort of knowing, wait, that job got listed in the first place. That gives me hope. So when I see the next one come up in a month from now or even less, I can, be ready for that. So hopefully that brings a little bit more clarity to that. Tech market, it's a pendulum swing. I have a lot of friends who work in tech, and they've been, some of them have been laid off, but they're not without a job for very long, or at least most of them aren't, because they're still providing solutions to a company. The other ones who get complacent within their role are the ones that are struggling a bit more on finding a job more quickly, is because you should never be outside of something called the developer mentality. And I'd like to actually talk a little bit more about that with you here in a second, Zandra, but I want to get to Teddy's.
Tell us more, Dean.
I want to
Tell the
get to.
people.
I'll tell them. I'll preach to you all right now. But I want to get to Teddy's question first before I get on my soapbox. Again, I've been going up and down on that soapbox for like the past 30 minutes now. But which is the highest demand right now, cybersecurity or full stack development? Um, that's it's kind of tough because I think they're actually still both in demand. But I know this is going to be a corny answer, Teddy, and you're probably not going to like what I say. But it's you're going to find success on whatever you find more appealing to you personally. Because the more you dive into it, the more well rounded you're going to become, the more solutions you're providing to a company, the more bites you're going to get on your resume. So I would try your hand at maybe a little bit of both, and then jumping into that. Now, if you want more of a statistically driven answer, that's
Hmm.
totally fine too. I would lean maybe more towards cybersecurity, mainly due to the fact of um, AI has become prevalent in evil hands. That means more data breaches. That means more needing more help. Now, tackling on cybersecurity and getting into that is a lot different than tackling on full stack development.
Hmm.
So, um,
And the salaries are different
and the
too.
salaries are different too. And what do you have to say to that, Xander? Because it is different.
It's tough to make a decision if you're not keen on either one.
Yeah.
Um, I would say if you have no strong leaning either way, go by what's in your region. Um,
It's a
the
great
the best
suggestion.
thing, yeah, the best thing to do is try your hand, like Dean said, try your hand at a little bit of cybersecurity. You can go on YouTube for some free training courses or free videos just to kind of get the flavor
Hmm.
before you sign up for a new camp. And then you'll kind of see like, this was kind of boring, I didn't really like that. Or, oh yeah, this was fun, I kind of like that. Because honestly, whichever one you get more jazzed and more into is gonna come out in an interview. If you're in the interview and you're like dead and not engaging, it's gonna
all
come out.
all monotone, like, so tell me about these
Hmm.
certificates and everything. And
Hmm.
well, it was miserable. You know, you don't
Yeah.
want to you don't want to sound like that.
Hmm.
Um, if you are interested in maybe how can I bridge the gap between the two, development and cybersecurity, I
Hmm.
would say the best middle of the road is probably backend development. So, and the reason I mention that is because if you think about cybersecurity and you think about threats within that, what are hackers trying to get into? 9 times out of 10, it's people's data. I should say 10 times out of 10. It's always data. They're trying to get accounting and routing numbers, social securities, addresses, personal information. They're trying to get all of that.
Hmm.
How's that stored? Well, it's in a SQL database more times than likely. It's in some type of database. And I mean, one of the biggest attacks is called SQL injection. So
Hmm.
that's all within backend. So if you tackle on backend development, you don't really constrict yourself. You don't put yourself inside of a box, because if you want to take backend and then go into full stack, well, that process is going to be a lot easier. If you want to take backend and go into cybersecurity, well, that's definitely going to help on a resume, knowing how Python and SQL works, and knowing how data kind of moves around. I would say maybe look into the back end if you're trying to find something middle of the road. Um, that might be a good start.
I
And
like that.
the cool thing about the back end boot camp, at least with New Camp, it's my favorite course that we have here. It's not to say
Hmm.
the other ones aren't good and delude the rest of them. It's just my personal favorite. Um, the cool thing about it is you don't have to have any type of prerequisite to it. If you know how a computer works, if you're just a little bit more tech savvy on how a keyboard works too, then you can jump straight into it. And in the next 16 weeks, you're learning about Python, the best coding language, or not the best, the most in demand coding language right now. SQL, which is everything to do with database management. And there's a lot that falls underneath that umbrella. And then
Hmm.
DevOps, which is cloud. There's a lot of money to be made in cloud. I mean, I see a lot of people just pivot straight into that. So there's just good opportunities within the back end boot camp. Anyway,
Yeah.
I
I'm gonna
digress.
steal that. I like that. What you said, like if you're really on the fence and you can decide, it's good to know Python for going into full stack or going into cybersecurity. So that's
Yeah,
really good. I
yeah,
like that.
and SQL too. I
And
mean,
SQL, yeah. Hmm.
all of it really just ties into one another. And then plus, I haven't really met many people who get into back end first who say front end is harder afterwards. It's always backwards. I see people who start with front end, they go back end is so hard, right? But
Mm.
with back end, you kind of it's not as visually pleasing, so the learning curve ramps up a little quicker. But if you
Mhm.
get past that initial phase, it is so rewarding in the grand scheme of things.
I don't know.
Uh,
I got that reward when Python returned something in the terminal because I started
yeah.
with Python and I
Oh,
was
okay.
like, yeah, I'm a really visual, artistic person, so I prefer front end stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the simplicity of Python compared to JavaScript, for me personally, it was a lot more accessible. And just seeing stuff coming back in the terminal, it gave me a little thrill.
Yeah, a little
Mhm.
dopamine hit, right? You
Mhm.
just want it to
Yep.
keep going. Yeah,
Mhm.
you get addicted to it. Um, this is a great question here. So, what skills do you reach after completing the back end course?
From the land
Yeah,
of Canaan.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say you'll be ready for an entry level backend developer role or backend engineer, software developer. Those all those different kind of titles. There's Python developer. There's a lot of different titles out there, but you'll be ready for an entry level role. I always say it's like you can't take an accounting class and get your first accounting certificate and then go work at the Federal Reserve Bank, at the top level or become the bank branch manager, right? You do have to enter the industry. That's entry level. So the back end course and all of our courses, really, except web fundamentals and job hunting, all of our boot camps are designed to get you ready for an entry level role in the industry.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, this personally happened to me within my boot camp that I went through years and years ago. Was we started off with C sharp, which was kind of difficult at first, and then we eventually went to some. more front end languages. We kind of popcorn around a little bit, but then eventually we landed on SQL. SQL was something that, for whatever reason, really resonated with me. And so
Mm.
the reason I bring that up is because I thought that I was going through the boot camp to become a front end developer. I thought I really liked it. But
Mm-hmm.
then I started clicking with SQL super, super well. And what I found was maybe I want to explore data analytics or maybe a database administrator type role. And
Mm.
eventually I built some projects based off of that and I really, really enjoyed it. So what would
Mm.
probably end up happening is if you're still in the beginning phase of I'm trying to figure out what's best for me. Um, the fun part is as you're learning all these new things, what you think you're going to enjoy might actually change later on. That doesn't always happen, but it did happen with me. It happens with a lot of other people too. So, Kanan, the reason I also mention that is because as you go through the whole entire backend course, you might fall in love with Python. You might fall in love specifically with um, SQL or cloud, and then you might want to go further into a niche. So
Mm. I just texted you a little there's a little game. I don't know if you've seen it before.
let me
And
open this up and
if you
see.
wanted to share it, you can. There's like
Oh,
a
that's
SQL
cool.
learning game. Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah, here I'm gonna paste this in.
Hmm.
That's neat. That's I saw this game a long, long time ago, or something similar
Yeah,
to
I
it.
hope it still works. It's kind of been around for a while, I think.
I'm gonna paste this in. So this is a fun little SQL detective game, and you can actually, if I'm not mistaken, you pull up databases and you're trying to find clues through a
Hmm.
database, and then you plug those clues in to get to the next one to find like whatever the perpetrator
Yep.
is in this case.
Hmm.
Um, so this is a great little thing to throw out there is that Python is excellent for research too. If you want to become a
Hmm.
biologist or a chemist, um, Python opens up so many doors just in general. You're completely right. I mean, like you look at so many different titles out there, and even titles that didn't previously ask for coding experience are starting to ask for some type of coding experience. So it does open up a ton of doors.
Hmm.
Faith coming in here. Um, I love that name, Faith in Action. That's awesome. I've gone through a boot camp before for software engineering, C Sharp, SQL, JavaScript. I wasn't a fan of engineering, but I like the web development. Do you think this would suit me? Well, you kind of answered your own question of if you like web development, you should definitely pursue web development. I mean, there is definitely still a market there. And if you're really passionate about that field, that's going to show in your interviews. It's going to show in your projects. And I think that if you jump into something like the web development fundamentals, test the waters, and then go into full stack, you're probably going to tee yourself up for a lot of success and then have a ton of fun through it too. So, Zandra,
Yeah.
anything to bounce off of that?
I think faith in action. You got to meet Kanan over here.
That's funny.
But yeah, I totally agree with what Dean said. And then don't forget, ask yourself like, why wasn't I a fan of engineering? Like, what was it? What was in the software engineering boot camp
Mm.
that you didn't like? Like, try to think back and write it down, and try to crystallize it to what bothered you about it. Because you might run into that again, like if you're doing React and Redux or something, and state management, it's kind of not, you know, for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, it definitely starts to ramp up during that phase. But I think that when you carry your curiosity through,
Hmm.
and it won't feel as like I want to say like it won't feel as just like uncomfortable. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not if you run into an obstacle learning how to code, it's when. You will
Hmm.
definitely run into some type of problem down the line and you're going to want to rip your hair out, take a
Hmm.
break, take a shower, and then in the middle of, your shower, you're going to go, "I know how to fix this
Yep.
problem." Yep,
Yep.
I mean that happens a lot. And
Hmm.
we kind of alluded to this earlier, but that kind of falls slightly into the developer mindset. Have you ever heard of that phrase before, Zandra?
I've heard that phrase. To be honest, I'm not sure I could define it
Yeah, the way that it
off
was
the top of my
described to
head.
me,
Hmm.
and if anybody else is a developer who's watching, or maybe they're not, or they're trying to become one, chime in on this on some things. But
Mm-hmm.
The developer mindset for me has been you should always be a student. You should never get comfortable in what languages you're learning. You should always keep up and continuing that phase. Even when you get into a position and you're like, I got it made, you know? No, that the good times means that you get to prepare for the times that aren't going to be so good. And through that, the cool thing with coding and the cool thing with tech in general is you get to do that on your own time by keeping up with your own personal education, right? If you want to
Mm-hmm.
get some extra certificates, if you want to build your own little side project, if you want to learn an extra language, not only does that keep you sharp in case anything, God forbid, were to happen, like a layoff or a business shuts down or something like that, but also you might be able to open yourself up for extra compensation in the future. So um, that's the developer mindset for me, at least.
Nice.
And it's hard to get into that, by the way. It's really difficult to hone in on trying to stay disciplined and consistent on learning, and you just never get complacent. Just always keep learning.
Yeah, ABC, always be coding.
I've never
Oh
heard
yeah,
that. I never
and
heard that.
get push, get paid. That's the one my instructor when I first went to a like a 4 week class. He said, "Get push, get paid. Get
Why
push,
why
get
is that
paid."
not the
Just
title of this
remember
live
that.
stream? That needs to be the title.
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
push,
it should be.
get paid. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Hmm.
Well, we talked a lot about where we came from, our previous jobs, and how we got into tech and some languages that we learned. But, I'm kind of curious, Sandra, for you. When did you really when did it really start clicking for you? How long did that take?
Until I felt what comfortable.
Well, I mean, more so in the sense of when did you finally get that role after
Hmm.
learning for so
Oh.
long? Like, how long did that take
Mhm.
for you? And what was your mindset like throughout that?
Well, for me, I did a lot of self learning. I took a 4 week class, like I mentioned, and then I got a web developer internship. So technically, that was my first role. And I was really happy because it was like, wow, finally my resume worked on somebody. And I also was able to do a lot of freelancing from that off of that internship.
Hmm.
And really, my really first role when I felt really like accepted and like I knew what I was doing, kind of, was actually instructing at New Camp. So after
Very
I had
cool.
some level of experience, I was able to, share that with others in the fundamentals class. Just the web fundamentals course, and it was really illuminating and sharing it, trying to show it to somebody else. That just boosts you, accelerates you so much faster and further.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I got a job as a software engineer at a firm in New York when we moved back to New York. So that was really validating. And I did end up coming back to New Camp, where I felt I can really share all my adventures to help other people.
Your war
Um,
stories, right?
War stories, yeah,
Yeah.
and don't make the same mistakes that I made and that we've
Yeah.
all made. We want to give you the shortcuts so that you
Yeah.
don't have to do that stuff, the
And that's
struggle.
that's what I really like about the instructors here is that they actively work in the field. And so they know those struggles inside and out. And so they're
Mhm.
not just experts within the curriculum at New Camp. Of course, they got to be with that, but they're experts outside of it too. They're familiar with other aspects of tech and how coding works. And so
Mhm.
if you have a question and you're in the middle of a class and it's probably off the beaten path a little bit, you can feel comfortable asking them, and they're going to be somewhat familiar most of the time with being able to help dissect through that.
Mhm.
We're approaching the last 10 minutes or so on this live stream, and I would really love for everyone watching it to prompt us some more questions, ask us a little bit more. We got Kanan again in here. What you got to say? I've been in QA for a while. Much of my learning has been on the job. I worked in FE for front end for briefly. I wanted to take the back end course to improve my back end knowledge and be more well rounded. I mean, absolutely, that ties directly into that developer mindset. You should you should definitely look into it. And if you'd like to, Kanan, you can always schedule a call with me or any of the other advisors here. We'd be more than happy to send you some more information or kind of break down what that looks like a bit more, if that kind of fits in for you. But um, let's go on to the next one. Elias, is that how you say that name? I'm bad with names.
I think so.
Cool. Can a software developer also work as a cloud architect? Probably. I mean, that's a bit more niche, where you might need to, depending on that role, they might prefer, maybe even in some cases, require certain certificates. Um,
Hmm.
and almost feel as though that might be a little bit. I don't want to say easier, but it is more streamlined in the sense of if you look up those types of positions and you see that they're asking for certificates, you know exactly what to work for. Now, if you're kind of shaky on the back end with Python, SQL, and then leading into something like DevOps being all the cloud services, I would probably get a better foundation within that before pursuing those certificates. So you could always look at the back end boot camp for New Camp as well. Look at over that syllabus, and it might be a better indicator for you too.
Hmm. That I am co-signing. I think that's going to be a little bit more higher experience, and like we said earlier, you're going to be entering the industry for the first time, so you're going to be preparing for an entry level role. Architect is not an entry level role.
Yeah,
But after a couple of years, that could be something that you shoot for as a goal, and you could keep that in mind now. Look at some cloud architect job listings and what they have listed as requirements, and then work your way backward through them as a checklist to get to that point.
a little reverse engineering there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That's how we made the internet, was reverse engineering UFOs. No, I'm playing. I'm totally kidding, guys.
we gonna get we gonna get taken off the
I was
YouTube.
gonna say, by the way, I'm very happy I'm not. um, Teddy, let's see. What would you recommend for individuals with no background in the IT sector who are interested in enrolling in boot camp to learn more? Yeah, Teddy, I would recommend. Um, you know, I want to say you're probably asking that question because you've been thinking about it for a minute now. And one of the things about it is like if you're kind of thinking about how do I get into this with no IT background, that's why you get into things like this, is
Mm-hmm.
to pad your stats almost and to really increase your chances by building projects, by getting certificates, by having those networking opportunities, which we all have here at New Camp. We have channels for job postings, career services. Think of it like this: New Camp being one of the top rated choices out there, right? Um, we have to consistently work for our students and we have to consistently place them in quality positions, because if we're not, we're going to have a lot more one-star reviews out there and then we cease to exist, right? Our success is predicated on helping our students and their success. So of course we help people with various backgrounds. What I would probably recommend, and just generally speaking, is the web development fundamentals. It's 4 weeks. Obviously the price reflects that. It's a good entry period just to see if it's something interesting for you, if you have like a drive to learn more. And then if you do, then that leads into either the full stack boot camp, or maybe you might want to switch it up and get into something different. But at least you have a better indicator of where you want to go and where you want to be rather than right now. It's not a fun feeling being lost in this vast ocean that is tech, especially um, especially when you don't have someone to kind of help break that down for you. But I'd be more than happy to
Mm-hmm.
discuss that more in depth of your personal background, what looks interesting to you. If you ever like, we can schedule something like that. But
Yeah,
let
when I agree. Web Fundamentals is coming up um June 24th. So the early bird will end on June 10th for that.
okay. So that's coming up on Monday, then, right? That early bird discount.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the
Yeah.
10th. You're right. Hmm.
And how does that early bird discount work for everyone who's watching?
So if you register early, it helps us. because we can line up instructors in advance and we don't have to kind of everyone bum rush and register the night before. Oh, now we need five more instructors. So we give you a little bit of a discount if you register 2 weeks in advance or more. So that discount is, I believe it's about 10%,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken.
Cool.
Um, and it just helps a little bit. So you'll get about $40 off your web
I'm
fundamentals.
I'm gonna throw a little secret at you guys. That link that I just posted, that Calendly, you'll get another discount if you click it and schedule some time with one of us. Just saying.
Oh,
Just
okay.
saying. If you're thinking about pulling the trigger on it, it's a little incentive. So just being able to talk and actually make sure that not only we line up with what you're trying to do, but you line up with us as well. We want to make sure we're a right fit for you, and that's a really important thing to me personally because time, right? Time is a non-refundable asset, and so you cannot get that back. So we're very very particular on making sure we're not wasting time. So at least give yourself the luxury of spending 10, 15 minutes on talking to one of our experts here, and at least you can walk away from that conversation having a little bit more guidance on where to go in the future if you're trying to get into tech. um, oh, and Krista said don't forget there are scholarships. There are, and those are on our website as well. There are several different scholarships that are available that you have to be eligible for. So, if you're interested in trying to take advantage of one of those, I would say our Women in Tech one is the best scholarship that we have. That's an amazing opportunity. 25% off the total tuition for full stack or front end. If you're interested in trying to save a lot while also getting a quality education, that's the best one for sure.
All right, Teddy. You can't quite get in the Discord yet. You do have to be a registered student. It's a private Discord, and you do get lifetime access to it if we all behave ourselves. We have lifetime access to it.
Yeah.
Um, once you're our alumni. But like Dean said, try out the free stuff first as well. Try YouTube. Type in basic Python tutorial or
Well,
basic HTML and CSS and try it out before you jump in if you're still having cold feet, and schedule a call, talk to us to help you through it as well.
and if I'm not mistaken, let me pull this up. I mean, we have a free um, JavaScript course too that you can always check
Okay.
out.
Yep, that's
Um,
true as well.
yeah. Now, JavaScript is, it's a little bit different than something that would be covered in the web development fundamentals. But yeah, Teddy, click on that link that I sent out, the Calendly. It's going to either schedule one with me, Adriana, Alea, maybe even Zandra, who knows. Um,
Not
and
me, unfortunately, but
not Zandra, unless something weird happens, apparently. But we'd all be more than happy to help you out in that. And anybody else who's watching, um, click on that link if you want to have more of an in-depth conversation. We all of our advisors here have come from various different backgrounds, and so I really do believe we give a great insight in regards to regardless of where you're coming from. I've worked with teachers, healthcare professionals, uh, truck drivers, retail, all like you name it. I've helped so many people at the starting line, and so but navigating that is always a lot different for everyone else. And so, but we're coming up on that hour mark, and time has just kind of flown by on this one for me. I don't know
yeah, it's
about you,
been
Xander.
really fun. Yeah, I really had a good time. The time did fly by.
Yeah. And if you have any last second questions, this is your time to get them in. And if we start to go offline to get those questions in, just click that link again. Here, I'll paste it in once more. Click this link and you can schedule some time with us and we can have more of a personal conversation and would love to be able to help you out. But looks like it's kind of slowing down. And yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and call it here, Xandra.
Yeah,
It,
thank you so much. And thanks for hosting. Thanks everybody for the questions. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take
yeah,
care. Happy coding.
bye bye.